Thank you so much for attending my presentation on blowing yourself up in Pokemon VGC, and first let's talk about what moves even accomplish that task. Explosion and Self-Destruct are both powerful normal type moves, having 250 and 200 base power respectively. Additionally, they both hit every Pokemon on the field, including your own. Now this actually sounds really good. A big damage button that you can easily avoid since you know it's coming. However, there's a catch. Using these moves knocks the user out. You only get one shot at this, and even if all goes well, you still lose a Pokemon. Even so, the high upside makes blowing yourself up enticing, so has it ever been viable? Well, in Generation 4, these moves worked a little bit differently. They still had their sky-high damage, but also secretly halved the opponent's defense stat during damage calculation. You were effectively clicking 500 base power explosions, and while the spread damage nerf would tone that down a little bit, it was still a monster. A Gen 4 explosion is very difficult to take on, which showed in VGC results. While there were very few tournaments at the time and even fewer resources to help understand exactly what happened, it's clear that Explosion played a massive part. On Kazuyuki Tsuji's 2009 Worlds winning team, two Pokemon could blow themselves up. First, Choice Scarf Metagross. With its item, it could outspeed almost anything, clicking whatever it wanted to, and Explosion was, due to its extremely high damage output, very valuable in the right scenarios. Your opponent protected a Pokemon last turn, it was at risk of falling to the strongest move in the game. This was made even better by Clear Body, which could bypass Intimidates from metagame threats Gyarados and Salamence. You were not slowing this thing down. Snorlax was also present, acting as a bulky attacker with Double Edge and Earthquake for damage, plus one last parting gift once it got low. This was aided by the Custat Berry, which, when the holder is below 25% HP, lets them go first in their priority bracket. And let me tell you, there isn't much scarier than Stab Priority Pre-Nerf Self-Destruct. This Snorlax in the World Championship Finals would actually get to blow itself up on the biggest stage and clean up Game 1. It knocked out a full health Moltres and dealt over half of Rhyperior's HP, putting his opponent in an unwinnable position. These moves were very strong and were key staples of 2009 VGC's metagame. However, in the generation change, blowing yourself up became almost irrelevant overnight. Why? Well, that defense-having mechanic that they relied so heavily on was removed. All of a sudden, their damage wasn't high enough to really justify adding them to a team. You could consistently get power that got the job done without actually sacrificing an entire Pokemon. In Gen 5, you could use the gem items to get a one-time boost to a move. Flying Gem Acrobatics, for example, could hit similar powers to a Spread Explosion or Self-Destruct and keep your Pokemon alive. Megas in Gen 6 and 7 had monster power levels that let them dish crazy damage. Also in Gen 7, Z Crystals super buffed a move once a game, letting you burst down a big threat just like Explosion could. Gen 8 had a similar thing with Dynamax moves, and Gen 9's Terra buffs damage by a lot, just like a Terra Electric Miraidon. These options were all capable of nearly matching or sometimes going beyond Explosion's damage output without the insane risk that the move had. The value in Gen 4 Explosion came from shredding through every single Pokemon that isn't a ghost type, but now Resist can comfortably take it on, and even some neutral physically defensive Pokemon can handle it fine. With both the nerf to its power and the rise of easily accessible high damage moves, Explosion has become less and less worth it. But that's not to say that Explosion is completely useless. There are some ways you can take advantage of it to get wins. In terms of real in-person tournament results, I scoured the internet but didn't find much. The best I can do is at 2019 Worlds, where junior runner-up Teddy French ran it on Smeargle. This isn't even a lot of damage, and I'm not sure why it was on the set, but in theory it's both a pivot move that deals some damage off of its high base power and stab. French actually did get to click this move in finals, killing a low HP Amoonguss and dealing a quarter of Incineroar's HP, so in all honesty, not a bad call, I like this. But other than that, there isn't much. If anyone else has real tournament Explosion results, please let me know because I'd love to hear them, I just couldn't find any. In terms of other strategies, there are some fun ideas. Using Normal Gem or Normal Terra is a cool one, boosting its damage pretty high. While making this work right now is really difficult with open team sheets and the prevalence of wide guard, it's possible to catch people off guard in online battles. Regieleki is an especially fun user of this gimmick, being the fastest Pokemon in the game and thus basically having priority explosion. In closed team sheets, you always gotta watch out for it. More reasonably is putting it on as a last move, especially with Focus Sash. You're at 1 HP, might as well go down swinging. Ignore how strong it is actually on Regieleki. Or maybe try Misty Explosion on Weezing. The fairy move starts with a measly 100 base power, but in Misty Terrain, which Weezing sets, it goes up to 150. Maybe don't use Misty Explosion. To be honest, blowing yourself up in modern VGC formats is a big gimmick. Great for chasing some showdown wins, surprising people in the GC, or clipping for Twitter, but in an open Team Sheets tournament, probably best you run something else. In conclusion, blowing yourself up had one generation of greatness before falling off of a cliff. While it still has a pretty decent upside, it's easier to match its power without the big downside, and honestly, its status as a funny gimmick is for the better. Dealing with Explosion Protect 50/50s does not sound entertaining. Thank you so much for watching.